Depending on which of these four we choose, that's going to determine how good we are at setting boundaries and how well we're received by those who we're interacting with and communicating with. Hi, and welcome to Therapist Thursdays. I'm Dr. Syra, and today I want to talk to you about a concept that I learned many years ago from one of my mentors, Kelly Toby. And it was a game changer for me, figuring this out and implementing it and teaching it to others. So I want to teach this to you today. This is the concept of saying yes and no. So it's a boundary setting exercise, actually. So what Kelly taught us is that there's four ways of responding to a question. There's an open-hearted yes, a closed-hearted yes, an open-hearted no, and a closed-hearted no. Depending on which of these four we choose, that's going to determine how good we are at setting boundaries and how well we're received by those who we're interacting with and communicating with. So let's break it down into and I'm going to explain to you each one of those and how you might give you some examples of what that looks like. Oh, I'll give you a good example here from my own life. So when I was 13 years old, my neighbor asked me to go to the movies. And we were kind of friends, but that particular night I wasn't feeling it. I just wanted to be home by with my family tucked in. And her and I were going through some, 13-year-old, whatever friend of me stuff. And I just didn't want to go. So basically she asked me if I wanted to go to the movies. And I said, I'd love to, but that's the closed-hearted, right? So it's like, you don't really want to, but you're trying to make an excuse now. So I said, I'd love to, but it's a school night, so I probably won't be allowed to go. She said, oh, no, my mom already talked to your mom and she said we can go. That didn't work. So then I said, well, I don't get an allowance and I don't have any money to pay for it, so I won't be able to go. She said, no, it's Toonie Tuesday and I'll pay for the movie and my, stepdad's going to pay for popcorn, so it's fine. I was like, okay, strike two. Then I said, well, I don't really have a ride there and I'm not allowed to take the bus. And she said, no, my stepdad's driving us. And then he's going to go to see a different movie and we're going to be in our movie. So I ended up going to this movie and fuming the whole time I was there. And that's when I was 13 years old. And that was my first introduction to not actually setting a boundary and not asking for what you need. So how I could have handled that differently, looking back decades later, is I could have said, I'm not really up for that tonight. Nah, I don't really feel like it. We think that we need a really good excuse to say no. Sometimes you just don't want to. And that's a good enough reason to say no. And you don't even have to give a reason. So here's the other thing about saying no, open-hearted no, you don't necessarily need to even give a reason. That's just not for me. I'd rather not. Why not? Just don't. It's not going to work out for me. It doesn't really fit into my schedule. I don't have the bandwidth for that. These are the kinds of things you can say versus, oh, I have this other thing going on. Because first of all, you could be caught in your lie if you're lying. Second of all, people don't really care what your excuse is. Once you say no, it's like, okay, no, and then move on. And if I remember somebody said something to me once like, oh, I have to wash my hair that night. And I was like, wow, okay, that's I wouldn't say no to something over that, right? But it's like people compare your excuse to themselves and blah, blah, blah. It gets complicated. So saying yes when you don't really mean it can land you in a bit of trouble, or not knowing how to say no can land you in a bit of trouble. So closed-hearted yes is, well, I guess I could, I suppose, if I must. Yeah, I will. And you've maybe been on the receiving end of a closed-hearted yes at some point in your life, and it feels icky, right? When you ask someone to do something and they don't really want to do it, but they're saying yes, I end up not really asking those people for much in the future because I don't know if I can trust their yes. I don't know if they're just doing it to be nice or polite, or they really can do it. And I don't want to put my friends out, so I end up not asking those people. An open-hearted yes is, a wholehearted yes where you're totally committed to it. And here's the thing. If you know you have to say yes, but you don't want to, but you know you have to, there are situations like that, then make it wholehearted, right? Get behind it, get excited about some part of it. So an example would be, daily the daily gym routine. Oh my gosh, there are some days that I do not want to say yes to that. I just want to say hell no and sleep a little longer. But I make something fun about it. So I listen to my music, or I remind myself that I get to drive there with my husband, or like I have to find something to make it wholehearted to say yes. That's saying yes to myself. Saying yes or no to others is harder than saying yes or no to ourselves, I find. So that's the yes, open-hearted, closed-hearted. No, there's open-hearted and closed-hearted. So I gave you an example of a closed-hearted no that I attempted, which was it's kind of like a passive, like excuses and like, no, I can't because. There's also the closed-hearted no that's like, hell no. How could you even ask me that? Don't you know I'm so stressed? How could I? And sometimes when we're first starting to set boundaries, our no's can come out a little bit aggressive like that, which is, it's closed-hearted, right? We're trying to keep the bond intact while setting a boundary, while saying yes or no to something. Can you keep the bond intact? That's what this craft is moving us towards. So open-hearted yes, closed-heartedness yes, open-hearted no, closed-hearted no. I would encourage you to do a little experiment over the next few days. Just notice your yeses and nos to other people, and whether they're truly open-hearted and heartfelt or they're not. And if they're not, if they're closed-hearted yeses and closed-hearted nos, well, maybe there's some changes that need to be made. And there's some ideas here that I've talked about on how to do that. But a lot of it has to do with giving yourself permission to set boundaries and know that some people won't like you for that. Some people will feel uncomfortable with your no. People who have a hard time saying no also have a really hard time hearing a no. So as you start saying no more, there will be people in your life who just don't accept that. So be ready for that as you start experimenting with this idea. So those are my thoughts. Thank you, Kelly, for that teaching many, many years ago. Thank you to my neighbor for the life lesson many years ago, and hope this was enjoyable for you. Like it if you like it. Leave a comment to tell us about your experience with open-hearted and closed-hearted yes and no, and we'll see you next time. Bye.